of building architecture where it depicts the Brahmaloka, Vaikuntha, and also Loka of Shiva and different depictions so that people can understand. And also huge constructions for the temple and also guest houses, things like that.
Very nice. Okay. So here we are in Delhi. A few of Prabhupada's disciples had organized the New Delhi Pandal program, like the public festivals Prabhupada had already introduced in India. Tamal Krishna, Tejas, and Gurudas had enlisted the help of important Delhi men, including the mayor and members of New Delhi's management and reception committee. These persons had granted permission and issued letters of introduction to others, whom the devotees had been approached for donations. The devotees found everyone they met sympathetic to Srila Prabhupada. They respected him, especially after meeting him. Some disagreed philosophically, yet all were impressed by Prabhupada's converting Westerners to Hindu Dharma and God consciousness. And they had genuine respect for Prabhupada's worldwide propagation of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada had great stature among the Indians as a sadhu. Speaking only on the basis of the scriptures, he exhibited full surrender to Lord Krishna. He was above politics and sectarianism. He was fully spiritual and commanded respect. Everyone, regardless of personal philosophies or practices, seemed to accept him as a true representative of Indian culture, a genuine sadhu and guru. Among the distinguished persons who agreed to appear as guest speakers during the 10-day festival were Sri Hamsraj Gupta, Mayor H. Bachchan, a famous Hindi poet, Sri Syam Charan Gupta, Chairman of the Delhi Metropolitan Council, Sri C.B. Agrawal, a famous orator, Sri Vipin Chandra Mishra, Magistrate of the Delhi High Court, Dr. Atmaram, a renowned scientist, Colonel B.R. Mohan, ex-mayor and industrialist of Lucknow, Sri Alan Saklani, a prominent industrialist, Sri Adityanath Jha, the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, Sri Jagjeevan Ram, Indian Defense Minister, and His Excellency James George, the Canadian High Commissioner. Gurudas had also had friendly conversations with the US Ambassador to India, Kenneth Keating, who had repeatedly expressed his respect for the Krishna consciousness movement. Ambassador Keating regretted that he would be out of town during the function. So here, devotees has made, for everybody sounds like a festival, but it's a pandal program, huge public program, which is temporary setup, generally goes for several days. And Prabhupada is going to speak on this, and devotees are working hard to invite the guests, set up the work, advertisements, raising the funds, and they met several donors and people. They appreciate so much. Prabhupada has real respect now, knowing he could train the Western disciples. And several dignitaries has confirmed to come. The mayor, the magistrate of the High Court, and ex-mayor, and all these prominent people, they're coming as a chief guests, and everyone has a good respect for Prabhupada because he is above politics and sectarianism. And among the sadhus also is very much respected because he's a pure devotee. Thus he says a genuine sadhu and guru. So that's what I wanted to give this brief summary. Now today, Solomon joined. Solomon, what is your full name? You're also AJ Solomon, right?
My full name?
Yeah.
Brian Page.
Brian, but what is the You write something else, your name.
Oh, on Facebook, you mean?
Yeah, what do you write?
Brian Soul.
Okay, Brian Sol. That's okay. Brian is I call him Solomon, and he's our long time congregation. He's traveling, but his heart is always in Delaware, and I'm happy for that.
Yes.
Solomon, please read this.
Okay. The devotees?
Yes.
The devotees had secured an excellent location at the LIC grounds in Connaught Place, the heart of New Delhi's commercial district. There, they had arranged for a large tent and outdoor lighting for the 10-day festival. On opening day, the program started at 6 a.m. with the kirtan and an arati before the newly arrived deities of Radha and Krishna, while marble deities from Jaipur enthroned upon a flower-bedecked altar on the large stage. Attendance was sparse at first, but picked up when afternoon kirtan and arti, devotees began distributing Krishna Prasad. The evening program started with the kirtan, which continued enthusiastically, building to an ecstatic climax as Srila Prabhupada entered. Keep going. For the pious people of Delhi, the evening Hare Krishna festival was a momentous occasion. Since the location and the hour were ideal and admission was free, the crowd had grown to tens of thousands, many having come specifically to see the young American Vaishnavas. At Prabhupada's arrival, hundreds of people surged forward to touch his feet and receive his blessings as a ring of disciples escorted him through the crowd. Prabhupada, wearing a gray wool chadar, his Swami hat pushed back casually on his head, moved calmly forward toward the stage with natural aristocratic poise. He sat on the Vyasasana and the audience quieted. New Delhi's mayor, Sri Hans Rajgupta, spoke first. He had met Srila Prabhupada in the early 1960s when Prabhupada had approached him for a donation to publish the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mayor Gupta, recognizing Prabhupada as, quote, someone sincere and near to God, had helped, and Prabhupada had later presented him with complimentary copies of the first two volumes of his Srimad Bhagavatam. Mr. Gupta was impressed by Prabhupada's success in spreading Vaishnavism in the West, and he introduced Srila Prabhupada. And as he introduced Srila Prabhupada, he expounded on the Krishna consciousness philosophy he had read in Prabhupada's Bhagavatams. He said, speaking in Hindi, that as mayor of Delhi for 5 years, he had many times welcomed important visitors and delivered addresses, but such functions were usually only formalities. This was not, however, the case with Srila Prabhupada, he said. Since no one had ever, where'd it go? Since no one he had ever known could compare with him. He praised Prabhupada for doing, quote, an immense amount of good work in India and the whole world. Said Mayor Gupta, he has also given me love and affection, and I am more affected by that than anything else.
Would you like to give a summary of it, what you read?
Me?
Yeah.
Sounded like they had a kirtan, they had their programs, and that a very large amount of people came, thousands of people came to see. I guess they were enthusiastic about seeing Western Vaishnavas, and the event grew to a very large amount, and that this the man what was it, the mayor who spoke, wasn't there just as a formality. He genuinely appreciated Prabhupada and wanted to, give his highest blessings or what have you to the event, being so affected by him.
Yes, thank you. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, his instruction, Krishna's instruction is that if you're born in India, you dedicate your life and preach. Now it appears like Americans has a lot of important role, and they did it actually. They did it in the until now they are doing. We can still see the impact as Americans took to Krishna consciousness. And the whole world is trying to take it. So that's it. Mr. Hamsraj is sharing his experiences. If you all know, how difficult Prabhupada had in the Delhi time, right? As you remember? So he had he used to print and he used to go door to door. Sometimes people used to yell, get out of here. Now he had hundreds and thousands of people are there to receive him and offer respect to him. That's really great, Krishna's element. Okay, Prasanthi, please.
He said, speaking in Hindi, that as mayor of Delhi for 5 years, he had many times welcomed important visitors and delivered addresses, but such functions were usually only formalities. This was not. However, the case with Srila Prabhupada, he said, since no one he had ever known could compare with him. He praised Prabhupada for doing an immense amount of good work in India and whole world, said Mayor Gupta. He has also given me love and affection, and I am more affected by that than anything else. Then Prabhupada spoke. When he began by asking whether the audience preferred him to speak in Hindi or English, many called out for Hindi, a few for English. But Prabhupada announced, I am going to speak in English because my disciples, being Americans and Europeans, have joined me. They are following me and they must understand. If I speak in Hindi, they cannot follow. So I'm going to speak in English. Ladies and gentlemen, Prabhupada continued, I thank you for your kindly participating in this Krishna conscious moment. Just now, we will vibrate one transcendental song, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. As you know, Krishna's eternal consort is Srimati Radharani, the pleasing potency of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he wants to enjoy, he exhibits his pleasure potency, which is known as Radharani. After chanting Jaya Radha Madhava, Prabhupada expounded the signs of Krishna for half an hour, quoting Bhagavad Gita on why Krishna comes to material world, how the jiva souls are transmigrating from one body to another, birth after birth, and how human life is the opportunity for the jiva souls to revive their love for Krishna. This is religion, Prabhupada said. Simply surrender to Krishna. Become a Krishnite. It doesn't require a church. It doesn't require a mosque. It doesn't require anything. But wherever you sit down, you can chant Hare Krishna. This is the easiest method. The mayor continues saying that he was mayor of Delhi for 5 years, and he has been chief of guest for many functions, but they were just formalities. Just for the going sake, he used to go, but it was a very great occasion for him. He praised Prabhupada for his immense work in India and abroad as well. And he also says that he has given him love and affection, and he was much more affected by that. And Prabhupada spoke after him. Initially he asked for whether to talk in Hindi or English. Most said Hindi, but looking at his disciples, he wished to continue in English. He started with Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari song and explains about the pleasure potency of Krishna, Srimati Radharani, and that he exhibits this pleasure potency known as Radharani. And then he talked for half an hour, quoting Bhagavad Gita, how souls travel from body to body and how it is important to revive the love for Krishna. And he also calls to become Krishnite and surrender to Krishna. And this process is very easy. We just need to chant Hare Krishna, and we can do that anywhere. And this is a simple method.
Yes, thank you. Nipa?
Hare Krishna. This is religion, Prabhupada said. Simply surrender to Krishna. Become a Krishnanite.
Okay.
Following Sukadev Goswami, the ancient speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada condemned a materialistic life spent working hard like the hogs or dogs without self-realization. He emphasized that India had treasure house of knowledge, which Indians should distribute all over the world. Unfortunately, the Indians were forgetting their real duty. In conclusion, Prabhupada said, so there are many things to be spoken in this connection of Krishna consciousness movement. I'm trying to present this to you in the next 10 days. This is the beginning. I shall request you to come here. We don't charge any fees. We are depending on Krishna. If Krishna likes, he will benefit us. We are completely surrendered to Krishna. If he likes, he can maintain us. If he likes, he can kill us. We don't mind. We have no business. We have no separate interest. We request you to come and join this movement. It is not sectarian. We have many Hindus, Christians, Jews, Mohammedans, and Sikhs all over the world who are now in Krishna consciousness. We are preaching one word, Krishna, one scripture, Bhagavad Gita, and one mantra, Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Prabhupada attempted to leave the stage and again the crowd rushed forward to touch his lotus feet. Although Prabhupada's disciples were already convinced of his greatness and that greatness took on a vivid reality at times like this, when they heard him speaking so powerfully and saw him surrounded by throngs of worshippers. As Prabhupada proceeded to his car, he remained calm and humble, but disciples surrounding him tends to protect him from being jostled by a frantic crowd. Yet, despite the devotees' sincere attempts, individuals in the crowd would manage to break through, diving between the devotees' legs to throw themselves before Prabhupada. So here, I think Prabhu, there's one more paragraph I read. So in this is the religion Prabhupada is explaining. He says just surrender to Krishna, become a Krishnite. It does not matter. It does not require a church or a mosque. It does not require anything. You just simply sit anywhere and chant Hare Krishna mantra. This is the easiest method. And following good Sukadev Goswami, the ancient speaker of Prabhupada, Prabhupada condemned the materialistic life of working like dogs or hogs without self-realization. He was saying that the treasure house of knowledge, which Indians should distribute over the world. But the Indians unfortunately forgot this real duty. In conclusion, Prabhupada said there are many things to be spoken in regards to Krishna consciousness, and he is trying to present it in the next 10 days. And this is just the beginning. He shall request everyone to come here, and they don't charge fees. We are dependent on Krishna, and if Krishna likes, he will benefit everyone. So we are completely surrendered to Krishna. He can maintain us. If he likes, Krishna can kill us, and we should not mind. We have no business and we have no separate interest. So come and join the movement. It is not sectarian. We don't have to be, we have many Hindus, Christians, Jews, Mohammedans, Sikhs from all over the world who are now in Krishna consciousness, and we are preaching one word, which is Krishna, and one scripture, which is Bhagavad Gita, and one mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Thank you very much. As Prabhupada was about to leave the stage, the crowd rushed forward to his feet, and although Prabhupada's disciples were convinced for his greatness, the greatness was taking a vivid reality at times. When they heard him speaking so powerfully and powerfully and saw him surrounded by throngs of worshippers, Prabhupada proceeded to his car and he remained calm and humble. And he was surrounding him tents to protect him from the frantic crowd. Yet the devotees were kind of, trying to, in the crowd, would manage to break through and dive between the legs, Prabhupada's legs, to throw themselves before Prabhupada.
Yeah, thank you. Second Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. As Prabhupada proceeded to his car, he remained calm and humble. But the disciples surrounding him tends to protect him from being jostled by a frantic crowd. Yet, despite the devotees' sincere attempts, individuals in the crowd would manage to break through, diving between the devotees' legs to throw themselves before Prabhupada. Do you know why they are worshipping me? Prabhupada said, turning to the disciples near him. It is because I am free from sex desire. For 10 consecutive nights, Srila Prabhupada lectured at the Pandal. In many of his lectures, he would speak of Dharma, religion, in connection with the Krishna consciousness movement. The Krishna consciousness movement is the topmost yoga system. It is very scientific. Don't think it is the sentimental movement. It is authorized, supported by the Vedic literatures, and actually it is becoming effective. Religion is surrendered to God. These boys and girls have taken to this religion, to this real religion. This movement is so important, and we are giving everyone a chance to make this life successful. Therefore, our humble request is that you take to Krishna consciousness. On the fifth evening, after Justice Mishra had referred to religion in his introduction, Srila Prabhupada defined the word in his lecture. Religion means constitutional position. In the English dictionary, religion is described as faith. But by Vedic definition, religion cannot be changed like faith because it is the law given by the Lord. Only surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna is dharma. That is Krishna's verdict. One should not have any ulterior motive in approaching God. Why not surrender immediately? Be intelligent. Real religion means to surrender immediately. Why should you wait for many births? We request all of you to try to understand this process of Krishna consciousness very seriously. Take to it and you will become happy. Srila Prabhupada saw the Indian people abandoning their dharma for materialism, and he spoke strongly, pointing out their great mistake and urging them to rectify it. If you actually want to advance your nation, India, then you must take to the culture of Krishna consciousness. This will glorify your country. You cannot compete with the Western world in the field of technology. It is impossible. The Western countries are meant for that purpose, for advancing technology. But you are meant for a different purpose. Your special advantage is that you have been born in this land of Bharatvarsh after many births and after performing many pious activities. So here Prabhupada, after one day's lecture, when he's going to his car, like many disciples were surrounding him to protect him from the crowd. But even though still some individuals in the crowd were able to break through and basically try to take blessings from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada mentions to one of his disciples, do you know like why they are worshipping me? And Prabhupada says that it's because he is free from sex desire. And then in all those lectures at the Pandal, he would speak of dharma in connection with the Krishna consciousness movement. And speaking about Krishna consciousness movement, he says that it is the topmost yoga system. It is very scientific. It is not sentimental. It is authorized. It comes from the Vedic literatures, and it is effective. And religion means it is surrender to God. And he says that by coming to Krishna consciousness, we are giving everyone to make their life successful. and he asks everyone to take Krishna consciousness. On the fifth meaning, when Justice Mishra referred to religion in his introduction, Srila Prabhupada defined the word of religion. So he says that the religion, in the English dictionary, the religion is described as faith, but by the Vedic definition, religion cannot be changed like faith because it is the law given by the Lord. Only surrendering to the lotus feet of Krishna is dharma. And he also asks why are he answers, he questions the crowd, why are you not surrendering? You should be intelligent. Real religion means to surrender immediately. Why do you want to wait for many births to surrender? And if you take to it, you will become happy. And he saw the Indian people abandoning their dharma for material gains. And he mentions that if you actually want to advance India, then you must take to Krishna consciousness. That the Western world is meant for advancement in technology, whereas in India you have taken birth here after many births and after many pious activities. So you have this advantage, and you should take to Krishna consciousness if you are from India.
What amazing statements, isn't it? The two things. One is the Western countries meant for material prosperity, advancement, not land of India. Thus, now everything is in chaos because Indian land is meant for self-realization. They never focused on so much infrastructure and everything. Now they're trying to imitate Western. They're in limbo, like neither this side nor that side. You cannot make infrastructure like Western country. You lose spirituality, you lose both material and spiritual, both. Everything will be, waste. There's one more point is, can you all believe how the misrepresenting, interpreting of a religion costs so much to the human society? Just a little definition change in definition of a religion has to pay, people have to pay a lot their lives. So much of confusion. And Prabhupada is so kindly, first time first time provided clear definition of religion means constitutional position. And that brings the society and people together. How great, fortunate. If that what we didn't have understanding, we would not have grown in Krishna consciousness also. I hope you all agree. That's the beginning for us. A good, nice definition. Okay, Ranatu.
Hare Krishna. India is very poverty stricken. So wherever I go, I'm told I come from a very poor country. India advertises this image. Our ministers beg from other countries. We are accepted as a beggar's culture. At the Berkeley University, one Indian student protested the studying of the Hare Krishna movement. He was the only student to protest. He said, Swamiji, what benefit is made by accepting this Hare Krishna movement? In another place, a girl asked me, Swamiji, what is God? So I asked her, are you Indian? You should be ashamed of being called an Indian because you ask, what is God? Although you come from India, the land of God. India is the land where Lord Krishna appeared. So although you may be born Indian, if you have no dharma, what is the difference between you and animals? One night while Prabhupada was speaking, an American hippie in the audience approached the stage. He had long, wild blonde hair and wore a vest and high leather boots. A miniature framed picture of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva hung on a chain around his neck. When the boy tried to climb up on the stage, some of the devotees pushed him back, but Srila Prabhupada intervened. He had a devotee bring a cushion and place a microphone in front of the boy. Then Srila Prabhupada said, Yes. Have you realized yourself? The young man demanded. Have you realized the soul in the innermost depths of your being? Yes, Srila Prabhupada replied. At first, the man was taken aback, but then he again challenged. Now, you tell me another thing. When was the Bhagavad Gita written? Now you answer my question, Srila Prabhupada said. what is the process of receiving knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita? No, the young man retorted. You tell me, when was the Bhagavad Gita written? In your lecture, you said 5,000 years ago, but according to other Swamis, it was written only 1500 years ago. Answer my question. I asked you first. Srila Prabhupada raised his voice angrily. I am not your servant. I am Krishna's servant. You must answer my question. A heated argument began with the hippie yelling at Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada arguing back. Finally, the devotees removed the boy from the stage. So first, Prabhupada you know, um, is talking about the picture that is portrayed about India, especially the politicians who have shown India as a very poverty-stricken country, and wherever they go, they or wherever Prabhupada went, he was told that he came from a very poor country, and as a beggar's culture. At Berkeley Institute, an Indian student who was protested the Hare Krishna movement, and unfortunately, he was questioning the purpose uh, of the Hare Krishna movement. And then somebody else asked Prabhupada, what is God? And, Prabhupada was very strongly gave a response that she should be ashamed to be called an Indian because, India is a spiritually rich, that is the land of God, and that's where Lord Krishna appeared. And then one night when Prabhupada was speaking, an American hippie approached, and he tried to climb up on the stage, uh, but Prabhupada intervened and he let him sit and gave a microphone in front of the boy. And he was challenging Prabhupada, asking him if he realized himself. And he asked questions like, when was the Bhagavad Gita written? And the process of receiving. Prabhupada counter questioned him about the process of receiving this knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, but the hippie was really very adamant and getting into an argument with Prabhupada, and he was challenging that he's heard some other Swami saying it is 1500 years old, and Srila Prabhupada raised his voice and demanded that the hippie answer his question first, and argument began between the two. But finally, the devotees removed the hippie from the stage.
Going to India and challenging. That's interesting. How daring. Anyway, Srikar?
The incident confused the audience. Many people began to leave. Why did your Guru Maharaj become angry? Some of them demanded from the devotees he should have answered the man's question. Some of the civic leaders supporting the Pandal program also became upset, fearing Srila Prabhupada had made an unfavorable impression on the public. Those who were devotional, however, remained in their seats to hear further what Prabhupada had to say. To the devotees, it was inconceivable. Why had Prabhupada, in the middle of his talk, invited a crazy hippie on the stage, given him a microphone and a seat, and then argued with him to the point of yelling and shouting, and all before an audience of 20,000? Bhavananda, one man who had helped organize the pandal, protested, "Oh, Swamiji has gotten angry. This is not good." But Srila Prabhupada seemed to have done it purposefully. He had spoken for a long time that evening on how to understand the Bhagavad Gita, and then he had this hippie brought on the stage. It was bewildering to us. We could not figure it out. Giriraj. The Prabhupada was actually using the entire incident to illustrate the process of understanding Bhagavad Gita. After the man left, Prabhupada completed his lecture by stating that one must approach Krishna or Krishna's representative with a submissive attitude, by surveying and inquiring, not simply asking challenging questions. The whole incident had illustrated this point. Yadubara. Many in the audience misunderstood the incident. It caused a split, but those who understood what Srila Prabhupada had done could see that this hippie was a rascal, and this had been a time for transcendental anger against his nonsensical opinions. Sages. After everything was over, Prabhupada told us, just as the gopis were lusty for Krishna, Arjuna would also get angry for Krishna. So it is not bad that a devotee becomes angry for Krishna. But many people in the crowd could not understand this point. How a devotee is not impersonal. The Indians are used to seeing impersonalist yogis who express no emotion. The audience was mostly impersonalist. The last night of the Pandal program, Srila Prabhupada spoke privately with James George, the Canadian High Commissioner. Mr. George, you have attracted so many Canadians and Americans. Prabhupada, I have not attracted them. Krishna has attracted them. Mr. George, true. Prabhupada, Krishna is all attractive. I am simply presenting the means of being attracted. That is my business. It is similar to the way a magnet attracts iron. If the iron is rusty, however, then magnetic force cannot attract. Therefore, my business is to remove the dirt. This process is Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the heart. At the present moment, every one of us is in a consciousness of thinking, I am this body. Because you are born in Canada, you are thinking you are Canadian. Because I'm born in India, I'm thinking I'm Indian. And because he was born in America, he's thinking he's American. None of us are Americans, Canadians, or Indians. We are living entities. Mr. George, I have no problem following all of that. How, though, is this change of consciousness to be brought about? For example, in the West, this, I take it, is your mission. Prabhupada, there is no question of East or West. It is philosophy. It is science. In mathematics, for instance, 2 plus 2 equals 4. This equals understandable in the West as well as the East. It is not that 2 plus 2 in the West is 5 and 2 plus 2 in the East is 3. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 everywhere. So here that incident where Srila Prabhupada and that hippie went back and forth, that incident confused many of the people in the audience, and then people started to leave thinking why Srila Prabhupada became so angry. So some of the people in the audience were asking devotees that Srila Prabhupada should have answered the question of the hippie instead of becoming angry. And even some of the civic leaders who were supporting the Pandal program, they also became a little upset, and then they feared that Srila Prabhupada has made some unfavorable impression on the public there. But those who were devotional, they remained, and then they heard Srila Prabhupada speak and complete the lecture. So to the devotees, this entire incident was a little inconceivable. So Srila Prabhupada, like, why did he invite the hippie? And then why did they start arguing to the point of yelling and shouting? And then that too in front of this huge audience of 20,000 people. So here devotees are one by one recalling that incident. So Bhavananda Maharaj, he says that so one person who helped organize the pandal, he was protesting, saying that, oh, Srila Prabhupada had gotten angry. This is not good. And then but it looks like Srila Prabhupada did it purposefully. So in that lecture, Srila Prabhupada spoke for a long time on how to understand Bhagavad Gita. And then Srila Prabhupada brought this hippie onto the stage. So this was all a little bewildering to the devotees. They were not able to figure out. Then here again, Giriraj Maharaj says, like, Srila Prabhupada was like using this entire incident to illustrate the process of understanding Bhagavad Gita. So because after the man left, Srila Prabhupada completed his lecture by saying that one must approach Krishna and or his representative with a submissive attitude, by surveying and inquiring, not by asking simply some challenging questions. So this entire incident was like practically Srila Prabhupada illustrated this point. And then Yaduvar Prabhu is saying that like many in the audience misunderstood the incident, so it caused a little split there. But those who understood what Srila Prabhupada had done, they could see that hippie was a rascal. And then it's good that they saw this as a transcendental anger against some nonsensical opinions. And then you have Tejas Prabhu, and then he's saying that Srila Prabhupada told them, like, just as gopis were lusty for them, Arjuna would also get angry for Krishna. So similarly here, even Srila Prabhupada, he got angry for Krishna. But many people in the crowd, they could not understand this point. So because many in the crowd were impersonalist, and according to them, an impersonalist yogi should never express any emotions. So they were not able to understand this entire incident. So on the last slide of the Pandal program, Srila Prabhupada, he privately spoke to Mr. James George. He's the Canadian High Commissioner. So Mr. George, he says to Srila Prabhupada that you have attracted many Canadians and Americans. Prabhupada says, no, I'm not attracted. It's Krishna who's attracted them. So when Prabhupada says Krishna is all attractive, and then and that he's simply presenting the means of being attracted. That is his business. And then he gives an analogy of a magnet, how a magnet attracts iron. But again, if the iron's rusty, then the magnetic force cannot attract it. So Srila Prabhupada's business is to remove that rust from the heart of the people. That is Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the heart. And then Srila Prabhupada further explains the philosophy. He says that at the present moment, everybody in this world is thinking of the consciousness of thinking is like, I'm this body. Everyone is thinking in this world that I'm this body. And then because like someone is born in Canada or India or America, they feel that they are Indian, Canadian, or American. But Prabhupada says none of this is true. Everybody is a living entity. And then George says that he has no problem following all that, but then he says that how this change of consciousness can be brought about in the West. Prabhupada says there is no question of East and West. It is philosophy, it is science. Krishna consciousness is science. And he says, for example, in mathematics, 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 everywhere in the world, whether it's East or West, everywhere it's equal to 4. Similarly, this Krishna conscious philosophy is science. So it's true and applicable everywhere. That's what Srila Prabhupada is saying, for all time to come.
Nice. About this understanding in Indian, especially Indian culture, the expression of anger is absolutely not acceptable. Looks like, because they can believe in a devotee getting angry, because we have been put in our mind that sadhu means was always titikshava karunika only, means you're forgiving, you're tolerant, you're soft. Those are the things that we have learned. Only in Vaishnava culture we learned from Rupa Goswami that how to utilize our anger. And that's till now it's the same issue in Indian audience, that they cannot understand a sadhu and anger goes together, because we have been taught that a sadhu and devote is like a totally different way. But Rupa Goswami teaches a little different. One can utilize one's anger. Okay, Sridhari.
Yes, ma'am. The first knowledge then that must be understood by human society is that we are not these bodies. It is very common knowledge. From this point, our spiritual knowledge can advance. If we do not know what spirit is, then what is the question of advancing in spiritual knowledge? After their conversation, Mr. George accompanied Prabhupada to the stage and introduced him to the crowd. For several years, I have been wanting to meet the Swami and see what it was about him that was affecting so many of our young people in Canada and North America. I was very happy this evening to come in response to your kind invitation and especially to meet Swamiji. I think, as he himself said to me a short time ago, there is something really happening. Whether he is doing it or it is being done through him, as he said, it is beside the point. But there is something happening, and everyone who doubts that should be here tonight to see this. It is happening not only here in Delhi, but it's happening in Toronto and Cleveland and Los Angeles and New York and all sorts of places. What is it? I don't know how he would answer that question. For me, at a deeper level, what is happening is the awakening of a surge. In his lecture,
Srila Prabhupada compared the material body to a machine operated by a driver, the soul, and he spoke of the soul's natural position as servant of Krishna. Addressing Mr. George, Prabhupada concluded his speech. Uh, here are Here our Honorable High Commissioner of Canada is present. I request that since you have come to our country, please try to understand this philosophy. I have traveled in your country, in Canada also, and as you have already mentioned, we have got 5 branches in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Hamilton, and Ottawa. So the boys are struggling. They are distributing culture, these books, and I'm getting very encouraging reports. Many young men are also coming. It is a very scientific movement. So I request you to inform your government to give these boys facility to inject this Krishna consciousness movement in your country. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Uh, so here Prabhupada continues his conversation with Mr. George. So he says that the first knowledge every one should understand is that we are not these bodies, and it is the very common knowledge. If and From this point, one can advance in the spirituality. So again, Prabhupada says that if we don't know what spirit is, then there is no question of advancing in spiritual knowledge. So after this conversation, Mr. George accompanied Prabhupada to the stage and introduced Srila Prabhupada to the crowd. So Mr. George was saying that he was wanting to meet Prabhupada for several years, uh, who was affecting so many of young people in Canada and North America. So finally he got to meet Swamiji and he was very happy. So he was thinking that about the conversation which he had a short time ago, that there is something really happening, but he didn't know what was happening. Or as Prabhupada said that he is being doing or it is being done through him, like he's not understanding, but he thought that there is something happening. And Whatever that is happening is the awakening of search for him. So in the lecture, Prabhupada compared the material body to a machine, which is operated by a driver. So the driver is the soul. Uh, so
Okay, so basically here for Prabhupada is now addressing Mr. George. He's see now because you're here, Honorable High Commissioner of Canada is present. I request that our devotees are struggling there. We have so many centers here, and I please request your government to help provide facility to our boys so that this Krishna consciousness movement can be spread in your country. Right? So that's what Prabhupada is asking actually, Mr. George, the Commissioner of Canada. Gaurang, Vijayan can read.
After the successful 10-day Pandal festival, 700,000 had attended. Srila Prabhupada took his disciples on a short excursion to Vrindavana. His preaching tours had taken him to such places as Amritsar, Surat, Indore, Gorakhpur, Allahabad, and Banaras, but never to Vrindavana. With so many of his disciples gathered in Delhi for the festival, Prabhupada considered it an opportune time to travel to nearby Vrindavana. They set out in 2 vehicles, Srila Prabhupada and 4 others in Mrs. Kamala Bakshi's ambassador and 40 devotees following in a rented bus. Prabhupada remained silent during the ride out of the city, past the factories and through the agricultural fields, groves, and villages along the Delhi-Agra en route to Vrindavana. When after a couple of hours they approached the outskirts of Vrindavana, Prabhupada directed the driver of his car to a village and into the center of the small town to a sweet water well. Here, Prabhupada and his party drank, took a breakfast of fresh fruit, and then continued on their way. Just before reaching Chatikara Road, which leads directly into Vrindavana, Prabhupada's car broke down. Tejas. After Prabhupada's car broke down, he rode the rest of the way with us on the bus. Our relationship with Prabhupada was very reverential. Although we were in the most intimate situation, staying with him and traveling in a bus with him. Prabhupada never said anything about it. In those days, we were actually very much like a family. Prabhupada knew everyone and everyone knew Prabhupada and would talk to him. But still, we were very reverential. In Vrindavana, Mr. G.L. Saraf accommodated Prabhupada, his secretaries, and the woman in the party at his home, Sharaf Bhavan. The rest of the devotees stayed in the nearby Dharmashala. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavana for more than just a pilgrimage. He had come to try and secure land for ISKCON. When in 1967 he had come to Vrindavana from America, he had come to recuperate. But on recovering his health, he had looked for a place in Vrindavana for his disciples. He had tried to establish an American house, a center where his disciples could live in Vrindavana's ideal atmosphere and receive training in Krishna conscious culture and then go out and preach. But after 2 months of little prospect for establishing his American house, he had left. So after finishing the 10-day Pandal festival successfully, Prabhupada took his disciples on a short excursion to Vrindavana. So previously, he had taken his disciples to preaching tours to places like Ramestar, Surat, Indore, Gorakhpur, and Allahabad and Banaras, but he never took the disciples on a preaching tour to Vrindavana. So, but now since most of the people joined in Delhi, so he thought that this is the right time to take them to the nearby Vrindavana. So they went in like 2 vehicles, one in an ambassador and a rented bus. So they were traveling from crossing the city and then crossing the factories and also the agriculture fields and also en route to the Vrindavana. And after a couple of hours, they took a break where there was like a sweet water well. They took the breakfast and then they continued their journey. And before reaching the Chatikara Road, which is the road that takes directly to the Vrindavana, Prabhupada's car broke down, and then Prabhupada also joined in the bus with the other disciples. Tejas Prabhu mentioned here their relationship with Prabhupada was always reverential, and they were like very intimate, and they felt that they were like a family, and everyone were free to talk to them, and Prabhupada also talked to other disciples, and they were like still very reverential. And in Vrindavana, Prabhupada and his secretaries and had stayed in the accommodation arranged by Mr. Sharaf in the Sharaf Bhavan, and the other devotees stayed in the nearby Dharmasala. So Prabhupada came to Vrindavana sometime before, but this time this is not just a pilgrimage. He came here to try to secure a land for ISKCON, because in 1967 when he came to Vrindavana from America, he just came to improve his health better. Now he tried to establish the American house, a center where his disciples could live in Vrindavana's ideal atmosphere and receive the training for the Krishna conscious culture, and they can go out and preach. But after 2 months of the little prospect of the American house, he left actually.
Nice, thank you. You didn't mention about the 10 days festival. How many people participated?
I think 700,000.
700. That's very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
That time 700,000 in 14 days. On average, 70,000 people in a day. Can you all imagine how big event it was? This one you read, no? This time how Prabhupada was become Vrindavan's. I can.
No, Prabhu, I didn't.
Yeah, Gaurang will read anyway. Gaurang, you're coming? This time how Prabhupada was coming to Vrindavan as that city's famous ambassador to the world, renowned for propagating the glories of Radha and Krishna. and Vrindavan in the west. The success of the Hare Krishna movement was being widely publicized in India as Prabhupada and his band of foreign disciples traveled from city to city holding kirtans, lecturing from Srimad Bhagavatam and telling Krishna consciousness in the West. So, when Prabhupada arrived in Vrindavan with 40 disciples, the entire town heralded his presence. The municipality of Vrindavan arranged a formal reception attended by prominent local citizens and sadhus. A spokesman for the city praised Srila Prabhupada and his accomplishment. O great soul, today we, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, known as Brajvasis, all combinedly offer your humble welcome to your holiness in this holy place of Vrindavan. And in doing so, we feel very proud. For many years, you stayed in the Radha Damodar temple and worshipped Her Majesty Srimati Radharani in a meditative mode. And thus, you now have the transcendental vision to deliver the entire world. As proof of your perception, we can see these foreign devotees before us, and we feel very proud to see how you have transformed them into such pure devotees. O great preacher of the Vedic culture, formerly a great many Swamis went to foreign countries, but now you have wonderfully preached the Sankirtana movement and the sublime philosophy of Bhakti cult in the Western countries. And that is the only means for giving peace and prosperity to all people of the world in this age. For preaching religion and culture, your holy name will remain ever dazzling. Such a soothing, welcoming to Prabhupada. Prabhupada is going to Vrindavan with 40 devotees, Western devotees. This one right here. So this time he was welcomed by the city as ambassador of the. 1 second. Sorry for that. Basdev is watching his Motu Patlu and disturbing me. So, Prabhupada was the way he was welcomed by the Brajavasis. And it sounds very humble and very thoughtful, their words. I think never had I heard all this time the way he was being welcomed. Municipality of government Vrindavan arranged a formal reception and which is attended by the sadhus. And I really wanted to reflect on this, what they said. As the spokesman of the city praised, addressing, "O great soul." Now he's addressed as Mahatma. He is actually Mahatma Prabhupada. Somehow or other there's a confusion, Mahatma Gandhi. Krishna says, "So Mahatma, so Durlava," he's addressing to the pure devotees. Devotees of the Lord is Mahatma. So Prabhupada is supposed to be addressed as Mahatma, and right way it was approached. O great soul. Today the inhabitants of Vrindavan, known as Brajavasis, all combinedly offer our humble welcome to your holiness in this holy place of Vrindavan. In doing so, we feel very proud. Residents of Vrindavan is very special, right? Because the devotees, the advanced devotees, so fortunate, they're very conscious. They're seeing the change taking place in the world, and no one has done. Now, while addressing him, he's saying that you stayed in Radha Damodar temple, worshipped Her Majesty Srimati Radha in a meditative mode. Thus now you have the transcendental vision to deliver the entire world. So as proof of your perception, we can see the foreign devotees before us, and we feel proud to have all transport them into such a pure devotees. Now further again says that, "O great preacher of the Vedic culture," Bhaktivedanta Swami. Formerly, many people went in the past, but you have brought the Sankirtan movement, peace the Sankirtan movement, the sublime philosophy of bhakti culture in Western countries. And that is the only means for giving peace and prosperity to all people of the world in this age. For preaching religion and culture, your holy name will remain ever dazzling. This is the blessings of the Brajavasis. Such a soothing, I've never heard this appreciation in all this Lilamrita. Many people appreciate it. Leaders appreciated, ordinary people appreciated, hippies appreciated, the scholars appreciated. But now the real appreciation comes from this devotees of Braja. That's really heart touching to hear this. Now we will, and Goran can read a paragraph and then we can end.
To speak or older picture of Vedic culture.
This one.
To speak frankly, we feel a very intimate relationship with you, and we feel perfect satisfaction at this time, and the privilege to present you this address of welcome. We take it for granted that you are one of us in Vrindavan. We are sure that wherever you travel, you must carry with you the impression of Sri Vrindavan Dham, the culture, religion, philosophy, and transcendental existence of Sri Vrindavan Dham travel with you. Through the great message your holiness carries, all the people of the world are now becoming very intimately related with Vrindavan Dham. We are certainly sure that through your preaching alone, the transcendental message of Vrindavan will spread all over the world. May you be crowned with success in these noble activities. Then Srila Prabhupada spoke, beginning by explaining how the International Society for Krishna is trying to establish Deva Varnashram, or God-conscious social order with universal application. We should not consider that Krishna is Hindu or Indian. Krishna is for all. These foreigners are taken to Christian consciousness by understanding that Krishna is for all. They are not accepting a form of religious principles like Hindu or Muslim or Christian. These are designated religions. If I'm calling myself a Hindu, this is not my religion. This is my designation. Because I happen to take birth in a Hindu family, therefore I call myself a Hindu. Or because I take birth in a particular land, I call myself Indian or American. But our Krishna conscious movement is now for such designated personalities. This Krishna consciousness is Sarvopati Vinirmuktam. When one becomes free from all designations, he can take Krishna consciousness. As long as one is Hindu or Muslim or Christian, there's no question of Krishna consciousness. So the Vrajavasis are continuing to praise, and they're like kind of understanding what Prabhupada wanted to do, which was to bring Krishna consciousness to the whole world, like how he wanted to bring to Vrindavan. And they said that how wherever he travels, his mindset's always that he's always in Vrindavan. He's trying to bring the Vrindavan Dham to all his other temples and continue the worship of Krishna like that. And through his through the message of Krishna consciousness, all the people will be very intimately related with Vrindavan Dham. And they continue by saying, may he be crowned with success in these noble activities. Then Prabhupada spoke and explaining how ISKCON is trying to establish Deva Varnashrama, or God-conscious social order. And Prabhupada explains that Krishna is for all. When one says Hindu, Indian, American, Muslim, Christian, these are all designated religions or designation. That is, this is not what Krishna consciousness is about, because Krishna conscious movement is for everyone, not just for specific people. Krishna consciousness is Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam, which is when one becomes, so when one becomes free from all these designations, they can take to Krishna consciousness. If one thinks that they're Hindu, Muslim, Christian or something, they won't understand what Krishna consciousness is trying to give them.
Very good. So it's 8:43. I'm grateful for everyone joining. We will meet tomorrow again. Thank you, Solomon. Hope you can join tomorrow also. We'll end it here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.